My name is Denae Wright. I have pivoted quite significantly from studying Bachelor of Accounting Science at Wits University in Johannesburg to now being a full-time content creator, creating hilarious, relatable reels with my husband on Instagram, a lot of the time making a massive fool of ourselves, but having a really good laugh along the way. My dad's a CA. I've always wanted to follow in his footsteps. It was kind of a natural path. So I think a lot of it was driven from wanting that financial success, wanting the safe bet. I had literally hated every single day of it. For 5 years, I hated every single day of it. You work ridiculously crazy hours. You don't really have much of a life. I just slowly watched my personality completely disappear. I just had to face this reality of, is there another version of my life that I'd prefer? I was diagnosed with breast cancer. This was obviously a disruptor that rocked my whole world. That really made me take stock of everything in my life. You go, if this thing's gonna be the end, how do I want the rest of my story to be written? What do I want to be remembered for? Something needs to change. If you start today, in a year's time, even if you've got 1,000 followers, you're going to have 1,000 followers more than you did a year ago. Just start. Start with what you have and build it up. If you're producing good work, if you're genuinely happy, then what greater achievement is there?
Welcome to the very first episode of One Pivot Away, Corporate to Creative. I'm your host, Chad Sturley. If you're currently sitting in a corporate office feeling like your creative spark is buried under spreadsheets and soul-crushing meetings, I've created this space just for you. In today's episode, I am thrilled to share a conversation I had with Denae Wright whilst on a trip to Cape Town a few weeks ago. You likely know her and her husband, Nick, from their viral couples comedy on Instagram. But behind the hilarious reels is a powerful story of resilience and a radical pursuit of happiness. From the intense world of accounting articles to facing a life-altering health diagnosis, Amber's journey is a masterclass in calling time on a path that isn't yours and having the courage to reclaim your personality when you start to feel like you're not living in alignment. If these are the kind of stories you need in your life, please hit subscribe to join our community as we navigate our pivots together. I hope you enjoy. Welcome to the inaugural episode of a career pivot kind of podcast. I'm still working on the title, but effectively this is like the podcast that I'm making for myself. So I'm kind of in a bit of a pivot journey at the moment and, always looking for stories of inspiration from people who have made a switch from a more kind of traditional path. There's lots more out there in the world. And so I think what we need is examples of people who have, kind of turned their passions into their careers and, successfully pivoted. So I'm honored today to have with me Amber Wright, of the insatiable duo that is Nick and Amber on Instagram, making all that relatable couple comedy, those reels that we ping, to everyone So yeah, thanks so much for being here. It's an absolute honor to have you here.
Thank you, Chad. I really appreciate it. I feel like no one has pivoted their career more than me. So I feel like this is a great conversation to be having. Awesome.
Well, yeah, I suppose let's get straight into it. Cool. So for those who don't know you, which, obviously if they do, they've been living under a rock. And what they should probably do is just hit pause right now, go onto Instagram and be at Nick and
Amber 22.
22.
Yes.
And yeah, you've seen their page before, but go on and just have a quick follow. But yeah, explain, fill them in for anyone who has been living under a rock.
So if you've been living under a rock, my name is Denae Wright. I live in Cape Town, South Africa, which is the most beautiful place to live, I think, in the world. Originally from Johannesburg, but now officially consider myself a Cape Townian because we've been here more than 10 years now.
Cool.
But did all my schooling and all my studying in Johannesburg. My family then moved and we followed suit. I live with my husband now in the southern suburbs of Cape Town. We have a beautiful Australian Shepherd.
Yes.
And yeah, as Chad said, I have pivoted quite significantly from studying Bachelor of Accounting Science at Wits University in Johannesburg to now being a full-time content creator, creating hilarious, relatable reels with my husband on Instagram, a lot of the time making a massive fool of ourselves, but having a really good laugh along the way, which is so fulfilling. And yeah, so that's kind of a brief intro. Is there anything else you want to know?
No, amazing. I think that's an amazing intro. So in terms of like when you're at a braai, because it seems like you were super articulate with the introduction, but like those who are on the traditional path, kind of there's a bit of judgment, a little bit of like because they're doing it, they kind of a little bit of stigma there type of thing. How do you introduce yourself at a braai? So what do you do?
It's quite challenging, and for a very long time I was very shy and insecure about it because people have put such a negative stigma on the term influencer. It's like it's not a real thing, it's not a real job. You're obviously just on holiday all the time. It's obviously just a hobby. Right. Do people actually pay you for that? Like that's a question we get all the time. Okay. So you just get products. I'm like, how would products pay for our bills, And of course, with this career, you do start in the sort of trade exchange world where you get products in exchange for content, because you've got to start somewhere. But eventually, it can grow into something that is sustainable, where you're earning money and you're today's version of a billboard or a TV ad, which is really, really cool. But to answer your question, it is always very interesting to see people's faces because you go, oh, I'm a full-time content creator. And a lot of people don't actually know what that means. Mm-hmm. They're like, content creator? I'm like, I create videos on social media. I work with brands and create basically adverts on social media. Then I follow that up with, because then people are like, oh, what type of content do you do? And I'm like, my husband and I do couples comedy. Yeah. And most of the time, people are not expecting that. Right. Nick, from the outset, when you first meet Nick, you will think he's quite reserved or quite introverted, actually. Right. Most people did. And when my family met him, he did not speak. So they were like, my sisters would come to me and be like, please don't ever leave me alone with Nick if you leave the room. Like, he cannot make conversation. That's the Nick that everybody else saw, like, on first impression. But he's actually, I would say, an introverted extrovert. I think his social battery definitely drains faster than mine. Okay. But he's not someone that you would expect to be pulling funny faces, dancing like a crazy person on the internet for views kind of thing. Right. So whenever we're together and we say that, you can just see people's minds are like, trying to work this out. Like, you two,
same guy.
I don't see it. But we've just found this really cool thing that we can do together. And, as we've grown, we've gotten better at it. But so that's kind of how I started. And then they're like, oh, so who do you work with? And then, unfortunately, I have a knack for going completely blank on all the brands we've worked with. Right. But, one of the main ones I always start with, because it's one that everybody knows, I'm like, well, we've done work with Woolworths. And everyone's 100%. Like, oh, that kind of gets people like, okay, like a serious brand, And then I try to rattle off, we've worked with so many incredible brands. And it honestly is in the moment quite hard to remember, all of the names. But I try to then give, we do this. A lot of the time I'm like, actually, the easiest way for you to understand what we do is to actually go watch our stuff.
100%, yeah.
So that's kind of how that goes. But you always, especially in a world where, or in circles where people have like very serious jobs, like, my background is accounting. So in the finance world and the lawyer world, and, when you come in and you're the content creator, you do always feel a little bit insecure. And I think that's actually where I've had to really work on myself to be like, what I do is awesome. I get to live out my dreams, which is something that very few people get to love what they do and be passionate about what they do. And I know because I was one of those people that wasn't passionate about what I was doing, and I was unhappy, and I was not being true to who I am. So I've played both sides. And I think that's just where I've had to go, it's not about, your level in society or whatever it is. If you're happy with what you're doing, if you're producing good work, if you're happy, just genuinely happy, then like what greater achievement is there? It's not about necessarily how much money you're earning every month kind of thing. So yeah, it's always an interesting conversation, and especially with older people. Obviously younger people, I think younger people are a bit more judgmental in terms of like, maybe there's a bit of envy for the lifestyle that they think you have as a content creator where, you're getting free stuff and free holidays, Yeah. But older generations really don't understand. Like I always joke, like, trying to explain to your grandparents what you do. It's not really, it's a world that didn't exist to even our parents. So, even when we studied, it's a career that didn't exist. So totally. It's always interesting.
Totally. And things are changing so quickly.
Exactly.
Loads to unpack there. Let's start off with Woolworths.
Okay.
Just because for those who have never been to South Africa, there is this miraculous place which, is one of the reasons maybe we would move back one day from the UK. Like,
you're not the first people to
honestly
say. I get DMs all the time from people being like, I miss Woolies so much.
No, it really is a good spot. But yeah, back onto Nick. So moving from, like you say, an introvert into this, like you've obviously brought something out of him, and as you say, when you watch the reels, I would have never thought that is the case. So tell me a bit more of that like journey of you guys together, and unfolding into this power couple that you guys are now.
Thank you. So we've been together a long time. This year's 14 years that we've been together, and we've been married now for 9 years. So we were quite young. Everyone's always like, were you a child bride? And I'm like, actually, almost, but no. We're very young when we got married. I mean, not when we got, well, yes, but also when we met. So I met him in my first year of varsity. We actually met playing touch rugby, which is a whole nother story to unpack. But anyways, we met playing touch rugby, which is a very unique way to meet someone. And we played on the same team in a league for a while, and only started dating about 10 months after we'd met or something like that. But when we met, I wouldn't have referred to Nick as an introvert, because he was always kind of the person we see on social media with me alone. So he was always being silly, he was always making jokes. And I often say to people, one of the reasons I fell in love with him was because of his sense of humor. It was one of the things that I was like, it was just so infectious, and he would make me laugh. I have these like vivid memories of us like early 20s at night brushing our teeth before going to bed and just absolutely laughing our heads off. So that kind of like humor was always there. And I always used to say, being with Nick really made me funnier, because my sense of humor got better, I got more witty, and so that kind of developed into this thing that we now have. And funnily enough, for him, I didn't actually know this at the time, but he's always kind of had this, he's one of those people that has a bucket list of like crazy things he'd want to do. And one of the things he's always thought is like, it'd be so cool / massive challenge to do a stand-up comedy skit. Okay. Yeah. So I'm like, goodness, I would not do that. And I'm the extrovert. Yeah. So this has kind of been that outlet for him, where he's been able to channel this sense of humor that he has, and just do funny stuff. And I think for us, it's been I always say it's like free couples therapy. Right. Because his job is very intense. He runs his own business. So being an entrepreneur, it's very hard. It's not for the faint-hearted. Right. So he works insanely hard, and he runs a really, he's very passionate about what he does, and he runs a very cool business, but he's very busy, and it's like a very serious job. So I feel like this gives him an outlet as well to just kind of blow off some steam. So he'll be having like quite a tough day, and then I come in and I'm like, it's our filming hour, because we film once a week in the week, which took some negotiating. And actually by the end of it, you kind of are rejuvenated and revitalized, and he feels lighter, and it kind of takes his mind off of whatever stressful day he's having. It's not always the case, because sometimes he's like, I really just need to get this done. Okay. So it has taken a lot of like working out from both sides, and I've had to work on my patience and understanding that, this is not his full-time thing, and he's really, he is the breadwinner, and he is running a full-time job and all of that kind of thing. So, but it has been this awesome outlet. And then from that, we've gotten to meet cool people, go to cool events, go on these amazing trips. So it's been it's added a lot of flavor to our lives and to our marriage that we otherwise wouldn't have experienced. So it's really brought a lot of color, which has been really awesome for us.
Super cool. No, it's super cool to see the journey unfold as well, because I did kind of come on to some of your old story highlights and stuff, and just to sort of see like the trajectory. It's been super cool. Okay, so you guys like batch everything sort of once a week. Yeah. How do you come up with your ideas, and also how is it so relatable? Like, are we all just having the exact same relationship? How does this work?
It's so funny, because that is the thing. People often comment on the things, are we all living the same lives? Yeah. And it literally feels like we are. And I think when we started this, we didn't anticipate it being so relatable to people. I think in the beginning it started as like we would find these things in our own relationship, these little dynamics or these little niggles, or Nick doesn't put his clothes in the washing basket, and you don't actually think, every other person in the world almost is dealing with these same kind of things. And the more we created, the more we saw like, wow, we've got something really cool here, because people are going, oh my gosh, that's us. I sent this to my wife. I sent this to my husband. And that's been like the most awesome reward for something that we just started as like a fun thing to do. But that is the question we get asked the most, like, how do we come up with our ideas? And obviously I spend a lot of time on Instagram scrolling and looking for trends and looking for inspiration and stuff like that. But I would say majority of our concepts come from an actual thing that's happened between Nick and I. Like, we did a video recently where it was him coming out we were just discussing this, coming out on a work break, and he sees that I'm cleaning or whatever it would be that I'm doing. I'm busy doing something. And he sees that and he's like, ooh, and he retracts and he goes and hides to have his break where I can't find him. Yeah. And that video we've shot that day, and that interaction had happened that morning. And I was like, this is a video. And I wrote it down because we have like a shared list on our phone where we add ideas, because you'll get inspiration, and I sometimes get inspiration in the middle of the night or, at a random time of the day, and then we write a list, and then when it comes time for our filming day, I will have prepped kind of what we're going to do, which videos we're going to film, which concepts, and then, we shoot them. So for an hour a week, we try to shoot 3 to 4 videos in that hour, depending on the concept. When we have big brand campaigns, obviously an hour is not enough time, and we try to reserve that then for the weekends when we have more time. So our Saturdays are usually dedicated to the brand work that we do. And we try to, because Nick actually does need a weekend.
Sure. Yeah.
This year has not been good on weekends. Rest has been a lot of work, which is amazing. It's such a blessing to have, but it does get intense. So we try to reserve, like a Saturday morning or a Saturday afternoon where then we shoot our content for brands, because that always just does take a little bit more. The pressure's higher. I get very stressed, but I have to kind of remind myself not to lose my mind, because I'm like, I just feel like so much pressure, which I put on myself as well. And Nick's just like, can you just calm down? So that's kind of how we do it. And then what's really cool is that these days people will send us inspiration as well. So people are like, I can see you and Nick creating this, or my wife and I had this interaction, thought this could be a great video. So people are very invested, which is really cool.
Yeah, I mean, it's unsurprising, because it's one of those on a platform that people talk about doom scrolling and sort of everything that's out there. You guys are certainly the one page that kind of like keeps a lot of people there, and it's so much positivity and like fun and joy and stuff, which is awesome. I mean, the reel with the after you kiss your wife, how you feel. Honestly, there is no piece of content that can like more adequately describe my life.
That video took serious convincing to get Nick to do, and I was like, trust me, it's going to be a hit. People are going to absolutely love it. Honestly. So I'm glad you mentioned that one. Nick, I hope you're watching and listening.
It was a goodie.
It was a goodie.
Okay, so talking about there not being too many weekends, and you mentioned a little bit earlier as well about like the free holidays and how they're actually not like holidays. There's a bit of work. So tell us about like separating work and life and like finding time to enjoy those holidays, which are epic, right?
For sure.
To be able to have that opportunity. But at the end of the day, it is, like you say, it's work and it takes a lot of time too. So how do you manage that?
I'm actually pretty bad at it, to be honest. It's one of the things that I didn't anticipate being as hard as it is, because I am the kind of person that wants to, so I run our page and I respond to the comments and the DMs. I do all of our editing and that kind of stuff because Nick's working. And so I find myself at 10 o'clock at night replying to DMs. And although that's not like hard work, I'm still on my phone and I'm still engaging in what is a part of my job, because growing your audience, building a relationship with your followers who are ultimately the people that are going to support you in what you do, it takes work. And it's wonderful because I'm so blessed and so grateful for the amazing people that follow us, because we really do have incredible people that follow us and just send us love and stuff. But I take a lot of pride in responding to DMs and that kind of thing. But I'm very bad at setting boundaries. Well, I've found myself to be very bad at it. So, but end of last year, I was feeling incredibly burnt out. I was like, I'm so tired of looking at my phone. I feel like I spend my whole life looking at this little screen. And I kind of vowed for 2026 to be a little bit better, to just kind of create better boundaries, to not every second of the day, if I'm, taking a break from editing or for example, sit and scroll kind of thing. And it is hard because part of the scrolling is also research for me, for example. Yes. So I am very lucky that Nick calls me out, which I think we all need that in our spouse or our partner. So he'll be like, he'll get up to go get us water while we're watching a movie, and I immediately pick up my phone and I'm like quickly trying to see how many DMs I can respond to. Right. And he's like, I was gone for 5 seconds, So I'm trying to get better at it because it does also affect my sleep. And sleep is obviously on the medication that I'm on, sleep is heavily affected, and then add that to like screen time late at night. I'm like, Amber, you're doing yourself such a disservice.
Yeah. Own goal.
Exactly. So I'm trying to be better at boundaries late at night, weekends, not responding to work texts. With WhatsApp being such a tool these days for like work conversations, you find you texting about work, over the weekends and outside of what would be regular office hours. So I'm trying to get better at that. Like if someone messages me about work on a Friday at 6 p.m., I'm probably not going to respond until Monday. Yeah. I'm trying to get better at that. I'm trying to also on the weekends, especially on like a Sunday, really take time off of my phone. Like go leave it in the room when we watch a movie or something like that. And it's hard because it is an addiction. It really does become an addiction. And I've had to face that reality of going like, Amber, you definitely are addicted to your phone and you need to get a hold of this thing. So it is challenging. In terms of the travel, the trips that we go on that are for work, it is difficult because the whole time that we're there, I'm thinking, oh, let's shoot this, oh, let's shoot that, oh, get this angle, get that angle. It's like, it's impossible to switch off,
totally.
switch that off for me. And you kind of want to just shoot the whole time, and then I'll see next face, and I'm like, okay, Amber, it's enough now, take it down a notch. And those trips are so incredible, and it's so funny because when I started dreaming about what a career in content creation could be, the travel was the thing that was like the pinnacle. And actually 2 of our closest friends are full-time travel content creators. Wow. Right. And it was traveling with them about 2 years ago, we did a trip with them where we shot content with them, and we've done a few since then, that we realized how intense that world is, because you're up at sunrise to capture sunrise. You're capturing a beautiful sunset, but you're not enjoying it, you're shooting it, so you're getting angles, you're droning, you're not lying there drinking your cocktail, you're shooting, So it was very enlightening, and actually it made us very grateful for the type of content that we do, that we're not having to wake up at the crack of dawn almost ever to shoot the sunrise, for example. I think the challenge for me is like work trips are work trips, and I accept, and I think Nick understands that when we're on those trips, I'm very much in a work zone, and I'm not going to be very easy to relax with. But when we're traveling for a holiday, I think that's where it's challenging, because now I'm like, oh, this place is so beautiful. Yeah. And it's like my whole mindset is like video, photos, angles, oh, look at that beautiful space. Oh, let me capture this. So it's really hard to turn off.
For sure.
It's really hard to turn off. And I think that is where I'm lucky that Nick's like, listen, my babes, this is a holiday. This is a holiday. I'm not working, And he does call me out, and he's very gracious, and he's very patient, and he'll take the photos of me, and he'll take the 45 photos of me when I don't like the first 30 that he took.
Instagram husband.
Exactly. He is an amazing Instagram husband. Yeah. But it is a challenge, and it is something that I think takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of, you really have to focus on it to kind of go switch off, set boundaries. So I would say that I am a work in progress when it comes to that, right. But I am very aware of it, and I am trying to, make some changes to kind of give myself more balance, especially when it comes to being on my phone all the time.
Amazing. I mean, it certainly sounds like you're thinking of all the right things and kind of, trying to get in a better direction.
Yeah.
So that's great. You mentioned there very quickly the little screen that we spend a lot of time on. I think to me, people who want to sort of start something new, always our mutual friend Barry, who has told me this many times before, always kind of want to have the perfect equipment and the most amazing setup and all that sort of stuff, and we kind of get stuck in this ideation phase of it rather than actually starting. I think definitely a notable part of your content and your journey is that it is all iPhone based, and so I'm keen to hear how you think about that, and in terms of people having not excuses but perceived barriers to start, and just having some examples of people who just started with what they had. I mean, today we've got just this. It's not a proper big setup, but at the end of the day, kind of making something.
Exactly, you're 100% right. I often say to people, because I always get people ask me how if I want to start this, I'm really keen to start a page. And then 6 months will go by, we'll have a long conversation, I'll give them my advice, and 6 months will go by and they won't have started it. And there is this perception that you have to have the most expensive camera, all the best lighting, the top mics, and it's not true. We have built our page to almost 60,000 followers with just the iPhones that we've had over the years. And actually when our content started performing really well, we had this moment where I was like, gosh, maybe we should be getting, going and getting a Sony and doing the whole Sony thing and the camera. And I actually realized, one, the style of our content very much lends itself to, we picked up the phone and we started recording because it's very relatable, it's very natural, it's very much like, integrating into our lives, coming into our home very naturally. I think if you're filming or shooting for big brands, for their websites and things, different story. But ultimately, you can start a page, you can build a brand with nothing but your iPhone. And we're really in an amazing time in the world where the iPhone cameras are insane.
Absolutely.
I mean, I get people often say to me, what are you shooting on? And I'm like, this thing. People actually can't believe it. And I think it just depends on settings. I think my crucial tip to people is clean your camera.
I mean,
it's such a basic thing, but I so often pick up people be like, can you take a photo for me? And I'm like, yes. And I immediately turn over. That thing has got hand cream on from like 3 months ago. I'm like, guys, you're never going to get good quality.
100%. It's just like microfiber cloth.
Exactly. I literally, in my handbag, constantly have a little microfiber cloth. And even though my camera is always pristine, every time I'm about to shoot something, I always clean it. Right. So I think a lot of the time I think it's fear-based, to be honest. Starting something completely new is incredibly scary. When I left my articles, I was terrified because I'm like, I'm giving up something that's most likely a sure thing in terms of success, trajectory, earnings, all of that kind of thing, to walk into a very unknown. And at that stage, I wasn't exactly sure what I was going to do. So it is a scary thing, but if you start today, in a year's time, you're going to have whatever, even if you've got 1,000 followers, you're going to have 1,000 followers more than you did a year ago. If you start today, if you didn't start today, in a year's time, you're going to have less.
Exactly.
So I always say to people, just start. Just start creating the content. And obviously I'm speaking from a content side. This can kind of relate to anything, but just start. Start with what you have and build it up. Over the years, even to this day, we don't have high quality lighting. It's the next kind of phase in our thing, because in Cape Town, winter is so dark that our house is like, it constantly looks like nighttime, and a ring light just doesn't cut it. So the next big kind of investment is lighting, because clean camera and lighting is hugely important. I always like to, natural lighting is always better than artificial. But I always just say to people, start with your phone. Then see how it goes. If you really love this thing and you're sticking to it, then invest in the next thing and just slowly build up your equipment, but you don't have to have everything in the beginning.
100%.
And I must say, what kind of gave me that, what kind of helped me come to terms with that was I did an Instagram course in 2020, I think, the first time. And they're for overseas creators. And they it's called Club Life Design. They created like a platform where they built a course, Instagram, content creation, editing, a whole bunch of stuff. And there were different courses. And I did their course, and that was what they had said. And I was like, whoa, because you immediately think in order to be a content creator, you have to have the most expensive camera, all the different lenses. You must know how to edit like a professional. Guys, my editing, it's getting better, but I'm nowhere near where I could be. And actually, I feel like, I can work on that a bit as well. But I'm not doing crazy edits on my computer.
Sure.
I edit everything on my phone. I shoot everything on my phone. So really, there's low barriers to entry. You just got to go for it. And I think that's the thing. Just take that first step and then see where it goes. And then buy the mic, and then buy the more expensive mic, and, upgrade your phone. So, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, timing-wise, there's no perfect time, right?
Never.
And it's never too late. I think that's the other thing, is people are kind of like, the guys who got really big on, I know we're talking, creation specifically. Yeah. The guys who got really big on Instagram started right at the beginning.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, there's never perfect time. It's not too late.
Exactly.
You can always get started, right? Which is great.
And then you're always going to have an excuse. There's always going to be something that's like, oh, the timing's not right. Oh, not now. Oh, just do it.
Yeah.
Don't let those things stop you from taking a chance and taking that leap. Yeah.
Amazing. So let's go back to then the pivot, which is obviously the arc of this conversation and what we've kind of been working towards. You mentioned a couple of times, so studying accounting sciences and that being, the uber safe path.
Yeah.
Speaking from experience, being there, done that.
Yeah.
And also being in articles, not feeling fulfilled, not feeling like this is actually what you wanted. So talk me through the pivot. What was going through your mind? What was the exact point at which you decided there's more out there for me? And, what was it on the other side that you kind of, where did that belief come from as well?
Sure. I studied my 4-year degree, which ended up being a 5-year degree, because in third year, I failed a subject that resulted in me having to repeat a year. And at that point of that failure, I was like, sure. Because for those first 3 years, I was like, what am I doing with my life? My dad's a CA. So I'd always wanted to, I was very good at accounting in school, very good at maths. It was kind of a natural path. I wanted to follow in his footsteps. I'd seen the life he was able to give us, and that was super appealing. I was like, that's the lifestyle I want. That's what I want to be able to give my kids, schooling, everything. So I think a lot of it was driven from, wanting that financial success, wanting the safe bet,
Yes. Yeah.
Is there even a safe bet? I don't know. But anyways, the safer bet. And so it was a natural, I didn't have anything else I wanted to do. It was like I applied for a BXI at Wits, and then I think my next one was a BCom something else, and my third choice was a BCom something else. It was like that was what I was going to do. And at that point of failing a subject, at that point in my life, I had not really failed anything. I'm very A-type. I did very well at school. I was sporty. I kind of did all the things, and I'd never failed. I'd never had to be like, oh my goodness, this is bad, So to repeat a year was a massive blow to my ego. It knocked my confidence significantly. But I was like, I started this thing and I'm going to finish. And I think that was the mindset that I had. I was like, I've started this and I'm going to finish it. I get through my degree, which was then ended up being 5 years. I finished my honors. It was a massive achievement for me because I had literally hated every single day of it. For 5 years, I hated every single day of it. So it was hard to get through. It's hard to do something when you're not enjoying it, at all. And I felt like it was completely not who I was. So then I thought, okay, it's fine. Because once I'm working, it's going to be much better. I'm going to find my rhythm. Now it's like application. I'm not having to learn. It's like in reality, I'm going to be able to work this thing out. My maths and accounting background is going to come through.
Boom.
First year articles. Amazing experience, met amazing people, worked at an amazing firm. Board 1 comes around and I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't want to ever have to write another exam again. Board 1 comes around, I failed Board 1 the first time. But now I'm like, I'm in this thing, I'm going to stick to it. Because you kind of, when you start the Bachelor of Accounting Science, or in Cape Town it's business science or whatever, you kind of know it's a 7-year thing. You're going to do your 4 years of undergrad and varsity and honors, and then your 3 years of articles. It's kind of like a package deal. Sure. You never really think of any other option. Fail Board 1. I didn't really give it my all. I think by the time Board 1 came around, I was like, I barely recovered from the trauma of 4th year. So I failed Board 1. I then get to rewrite it, and 6 months later I rewrite it, and I fail it a second time. And when I got the results of failing it the second time, I just knew in my heart that I had given this thing everything I had. I was coming home every day. I mean, you work, as you know, ridiculously crazy hours. You don't really have much of a life outside of articles. You'll sometimes be on a client until 2 a.m. in the morning. I was coming home. I had to be in bed by 9 o'clock because I literally couldn't function as a human being beyond that. And I just slowly watched my personality go, completely disappear. And Nick we weren't married at the time, but we were both living at my parents' house. And he was seeing this version of me and being like, you're never happy. You're so unfulfilled. And I was going, yes, I know, I am. And I think when I failed board the second time, I just had to face this reality of I gave this thing everything. I gave it 6 years of my life. I got as far as I think I can go. And is there another version of my life that I'd prefer? And I had to have that conversation. And telling my dad was the hardest thing because I felt like I'm letting him down. I've always wanted to make my parents proud. And I mean, I think we all do. But it was like a very big thing for me. So telling my dad was like extremely stressful.
And how was his reaction?
He was really supportive. And I thought I was expecting disappointment. And actually he was like, okay, my girl, if this is what you think, then I will support you. And honestly, without his support, without my parents' support, without Nick's support, the career pivot that I've had, or pivots that I've had, could never have happened. Right. And I speak from a very privileged position where I did have that support, where I had the freedom to, at, how old was I? 23, go, I'm changing my career entirely. And I then, at that point, decided, okay, I'm going to go, this was my first step into the creative world. I loved interior design. I loved, my parents had decorated our house in Belito. And when I watched sort of the process of that and how beautiful the house turned out, I was like, that's something I can see myself doing. And I went and studied for a year. Obviously, at this point, I'm like, I don't have another 3-year degree in me. And I went and did a 1-year course here in Cape Town, which was amazing. And I felt like I'd found my thing. I was keen to work. I was happy to work late nights. I was working on projects and stuff till late at night. And I really felt like I'd found my rhythm in terms of a career that I loved. And then I got an amazing job with an amazing company in Cape Town. I got to travel into Africa. We decorated Singita lodges, that was bringing my love for the bush and interior design together. And it was incredibly, incredibly special. And I am so grateful for that time. And so failing board 1 was the first disruptor for me in my career, and what made me go like, oh. Second one was obviously COVID happened. And COVID was a massive disruptor to the whole world. For me, it meant the job that I had, my role was no longer necessary, but they were able to move me to a sales role because the company also had like a store. So I was moved to a retail role, which was absolutely not what I wanted to be doing, but I was so grateful to still have a job because that wasn't the case for everybody. Had been there for about a month and I was diagnosed with breast cancer. So this was obviously like a disruptor that rocked my whole world, obviously. And that really made me take stock of everything in my life. And you kind of you rethink everything. You go, okay, if this thing's going to be the end, how do I want the rest of my story to be written? What do I want to be remembered for? All those kinds of things. You really kind of look at your whole life and go, okay, something needs to change. And so after working, I had 5 months of chemo, and about 3 months into my chemo, I decided to leave my job with literally no idea of what I was going to do. But what I knew is at that time, the thing I needed to focus on was healing. And working 6 days a week in retail, running up and down stairs, I was like, if I stay here, I'll die. Yeah. So I made that decision. And again, very privileged position to be able to walk away from a job and not know what the heck you're going to do next. But I am so grateful for that time and the freedom that I was given from the people around me and the support that I was given to really relook at my whole life and go, what do I want? And what I ultimately wanted was to feel fulfilled, to feel passionate about what I'm doing, and to be happy. And something that I'd always loved was taking photos, having photos taken of me, capturing beautiful things. And so my content creation technically started with sharing my cancer journey. And that's where I think the relatability of building up an audience with relatable content where people could go like, wow, it's not all about superficial things. Because I think social media can often be about, these aspirational lives, which is amazing. I love aspirational content. But there's a need for relatable, for sharing the hard stuff, for not just sharing the best parts of your life, but also sharing the really hard parts. And I think that resonated with a lot of people. And that's where our page grew. And then I just found this incredible passion for, telling my story and engaging with others and being able to support others. Of my whole journey, that was the most rewarding thing, was that I got to then support other people going through their journey and just inspire them and give them hope in the times where they were feeling like they whatever situation they were in, whether it was illness or other, that they had no hope. And then they could look at my story and go, well, if she can do it, I can do it. And that morphed into what I do today, which is like very different. But I then had to, after my cancer treatment, go, okay, well, now I don't have a cancer story to tell. Mm-hmm. So what is the next thing? Yep. And so it's been a very long, winding journey. But what ultimately has resulted is a space where I can do fun things with my husband, where the content isn't taking me away from my home and away from my family. We've been able to do it together, share these experiences together, grow in our marriage, grow in our abilities to, perform and act and engage with people, and built up this like really awesome platform that makes people happy. Yeah. And I'm like, I want to be happy. And I want other people to be happy. And if I can be the reason, or we can be the reason that people's days can be brightened, when I get those kinds of messages, I can't tell you how amazing that is. Where someone's like, I had such a rough day and I came onto Instagram and I watched your video. I'm like, that's the most fulfilling thing in the world. And what I wanted to be was happy, fulfilled, and passionate about what I do. Absolutely. And I was able to do that, and which I'm so grateful for.
Yeah, and there's zero doubt in the world that the lady in front of me is very much happy, fulfilled, and like very much herself. I think as you were saying, like I think all of us have had a moment where things at work get so serious, you kind of come into a bit of a shell, and you kind of lose a sense of yourself. Yeah. So I think the fact that you had the courage to call time when it needs to be called. We all think we start a book and we need to finish it. You talk about the CA journey. but it's actually okay to put it down and be like, this is just not the book for me.
Yeah.
And there are other books there that out there that are enjoyable.
Exactly.
And you also spoke a lot about earlier, but just about like, success metrics. And, obviously a lot of people focus on finances and, the what does my neighbor have and, keeping appearances. But you're totally right. There are other lanes, there are other metrics, there are other things and priorities. And I suppose, having your cancer story kind of just makes you realize how short life actually is.
100%.
And how, you can actually make a choice about how you're living. You don't have to follow, the path. You talk a lot about privilege, but I think a lot of people don't realize how many options they actually have open to them.
100%.
I think going down the journey of like, what is the worst that can happen?
Yeah.
And sure, maybe like, be realistic about it. Maybe like
exactly
after a year, like I need to, pick up something else.
Exactly.
And then we go again, right?
Exactly.
Like in a couple of years. But there's always options. It's not just one door in front of you. So, so to have that courage is really, really awesome.
Thank you, Chad. And I think that's a really good point. I had to have that moment over the last 5 years since I was diagnosed. I had many of those moments where I had to go, okay, Amber, this content creation thing is not working. At some point, you need to start earning money. You need to actually turn this into something. It can't just be a passion project and you need to make this into something if it's going to be something. And I had those moments where then I started looking for jobs and thinking, okay, maybe I need to go back into interior decorating, and even had an interview. And when I was offered the job, again, I'm faced with, do I take this? Because I know I'm going to earn a salary. It's a done deal. I'll know exactly what I'm earning every month. And I just had this little voice inside of me that was like, don't give up yet. And as a Christian, I obviously believe that God has a plan for me. And from the very beginning of my diagnosis, even from the time that I failed board 1, my sister wrote on a piece of paper on a card for me, I can't think of it, but it's the "For I know the plans I have for you."
Right.
And that verse has kind of carried me through the last 10 years. And along the way, I've always just come back to that. He knows the plans that he has for me, and I'm going to trust in his plans. And I think at this moment where I was faced with a job opportunity that would give me stability, I had to go, okay, what do you want? What is the path that you want me to be on? And this voice said to me, stay with it. And I'm not joking. 6 months later, we were earning more money from content than I was doing articles, So sometimes it just takes you also have to maybe not give up immediately, but as you said, be realistic. If, you can't take 10 years and not earn anything or not be able to pay for your bills and that kind of stuff. And that's, I think, where I talk about privilege is that I didn't have to worry about whether our bills were going to get paid, which is an enormous blessing. And that gave me a lot of freedom. But don't give up at the first sign of it's difficult, because it is difficult. It is really difficult to change careers, to pivot, to start something new, to start something completely unknown. I mean, content creation, like I said, wasn't even a thing when we were at university. It's really a career that's come about in the last 5 years, maybe, that it's grown so much since kind of COVID, 6 years. Don't be afraid. I think that's kind of what my journey has taught me as well.
Yeah. Oh, amazing. I wanted to talk a little bit about, like you said, when it does get difficult. So there are those, right at the beginning of the journey when you kind of have this belief and you're making a start, like we spoke about, using what you have. But at the end of the day, there is this feeling of this is cringe. Not from a point of view of you have that belief, but it's kind of what will people think of me? And there's this moment where it moves from being, okay, this is cringe, to wow, she's really doing it, and wow, this is amazing, and I want to be her friend, and you know what I mean? There's kind of this trajectory. Just on the Uber on the way here, we were filming this quite early in the morning, and I needed to get the voice a little bit warm, and so did some vocal warm-ups with the Uber driver.
I love
which
that.
Which is cringe, right?
I love that.
But yeah, so how do you kind of get through that cringe period, and what is it about the self-belief and determination to kind of keep going at those early phases?
It's such a good question, because it is something that I struggle with, and it's funny because I didn't think that I'd be, you kind of, I'm like I said, I'm an extrovert. I've always been very confident, but now you've got to go into a busy mall or a store, and film, and because of the stigma around influencing and Instagram husbands and influencers in the wild and this whole trend that, people laugh and mock and it's hilarious, I've had this thing where I'm like, if people see my husband filming me, they're going to be like, oh, look at this girl having her Instagram husband take photos of her, And it was really hard to overcome that, because you're constantly thinking about what everybody else around you is thinking, and what are they going to think of me, and are they going to think I'm so vain? And so it took a lot of hard work.
Sure.
It took a lot of kind of introspection. Nick, for some reason, was so good at this. He was just like, it doesn't matter what people think. Like, don't let that be a factor. He, like, the other day we filmed this video for W Cellar, the Woolies bottle store.
The cocktail one?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I come up with this great concept to dress Nick in a full suit on a hot summer day in Cape Town and go shoot in a store on a Saturday. It was like the busiest day in that store, I think, ever. And he was unfazed. And the whole time I was like, I am absolutely blown away by you, because I would not do this. I'd be so awkward. I tend to like get really stressed and really uncomfortable. And Nick's like, your face, you're pulling your face funny. I can see you're uncomfortable. And it's so funny because out of the two of us, I'd be like, no, I'm going to be the one that's more natural. And I think it just took, I don't even know what it takes, but I think for us, when we started getting like really awesome brand work and we started building up our following, and I mean, these days it's really cool. People will come up to us in the stores and people will stop us in places and be like, I love your stuff. I think that kind of gave me confidence where I'm like, we really are doing something real. It's not just this fake thing. And when we're out shooting, even though we're shooting on an iPhone and maybe it looks like I'm just making my husband film me for no reason, I'm like, I'm getting paid. Literally, my job is to do exactly what I'm doing right now. And I think the more success we got on our videos, the bigger the brands we got to work with, when brands started paying us and our rates could increase, all of those things kind of gave me the confidence to go, this is a real thing. Totally. And the more we do it, the more I realize the people, like the haters, they're probably just a little bit envious. And maybe they haven't had the opportunity or haven't had the courage to chase whatever the thing is that they want to do. And I have to keep reminding myself, like you say, like it did take courage. And sure, it was insanely risky to walk away from a CA qualification and go do interior decorating and then take on content creation, because it's like, it does seem like a pipe dream, and it really, really did for such a long time. But I think the more you do it, the better you get at it, your confidence grows. I've also got a partner in this that is enormously supportive, who, cheers me on and encourages me and shakes me, and he's like, you don't have to be insecure. You don't have to be worried about what other people think, and I think we all need that sometimes, like just like a little bit of like, come on, get on with it. We're here to work kind of thing. Yeah. So it is difficult. And again, it's something that some days I'm like, I don't care. Some days I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so uncomfortable. Yeah. But it's exposure therapy as well. The more you do it, the better you're going to get at it. The same as people often ask me, like just in terms of like talking to camera. When I first started like recording video, stories, talking to camera, I was like, I'd get nervous. I'd fumble over my words. I'd be like, this is so weird. I'm talking to people, but there's no one here. Now, it's like completely second nature. And it just took years and years of doing it over and over and over again and exposing yourself to it to a point where now I can talk to the camera in public and not be concerned about what I'm saying and be able to eloquently discuss whatever I'm talking about and be completely natural about it. So repetition, exposure, and just reminding yourself that even if someone's looking at you going, oh my gosh, look at this painful influencer, she's so vain, that actually says more about that person than it does about you. Yeah. So it's a working journey, I suppose.
Yeah. No, I think the exposure therapy thing is like proper, because I was actually going to bring up that point because you posted something like behind the scenes, and it was like my exposure therapy journey.
Exactly.
But there's a lot of truth in that, I think. And I think one of the reasons for your guys' success is like authenticity as well, and like coming as you are and, portraying your real self, because no one wants to see, a fake version of you.
Exactly.
So is that also a case of like exposure therapy, or would you say, your personality kind of morphed a little bit with it, or like how would you kind of talk to the authenticity part?
I think it's always just been us. I think that's why our stuff has did so well sort of from the outset, was people what you see is what you got from us. And I think one of the questions we actually get, or other people around us get asked a lot by people, they'll be like, oh, you know Nick and Amber. I want to know, are they like that in real life? Like, are they how they are on screen? And I think one of the biggest compliments is that everybody that's told us these kind of stories, they've always gone, no, 100%. They are exactly who you see on camera. Yeah. And it's not even like we tried. It wasn't something that we had to try. It just was who we were. And we really, I think that's why it does well. That's why it comes across so relatable. That's why it comes across so authentic, because that is just, if you were at our home on like a Saturday afternoon and we were, mucking about, that's what you would see. You'd see the version of us that we show on social media. And again, I think, like you said, with social media, there's so much negative stuff. Mm-hmm. There's so much like in your face about what car you drive, how much money you make, how amazing and perfect your life is. And I think what we wanted to show in terms of from a marriage perspective is like, marriage is hard. Absolutely. Marriage is not perfect. Yep. Your husband is going to drive you insane. Your wife's going to be on your case. Like, that is just a natural part of the world. And I think when you're in a relationship and you're going, oh my gosh, I'm the only one dealing with these things, it can be so lonely and you can feel so isolated. And I think that's what's been so amazing about our content is like other married couples and other people in relationships have been able to go, oh my gosh, we're not the only ones that deal with that. Yeah. And then it also takes I feel like it takes the power away from that thing. Mm-hmm. It's like, oh, this is just an ordinary thing and my marriage isn't flawed and your marriage is flawed, but I mean, it's like your marriage isn't broken. There's not something wrong with you. There's not something wrong with your husband. Everybody's going through it. And I think poking fun of those things, making light of it, it just makes it easier to deal with. And I think it's just been a very natural thing for us, which I think is why it comes across the way it does on social media, which is really cool.
Well, thank you so much. This has been really a treat.
Thanks.
I reached out and shot in the dark, and I'm absolutely delighted that you were keen to share your story, and it's been so much fun.
Thank you.
And hopefully a lot of inspiration for anyone listening. If you have been living under a rock, do go and check them out. You're missing out. Your day is missing some lightness if you're not laughing at them, especially if you're married, because it is so universal. Thank you so much. I really, really appreciate it.
Thanks, Chad.
I hope Amber's story has given you some much needed light today. Her journey from accounting articles to viral creativity is such a powerful reminder that it is okay to put down a book that just isn't yours to finish. Whether you're currently watching your own personality disappear in a corporate shell, or you're just one pivot away from your own creative spark, remember Amber's advice. Just start today with what you have. As I mentioned, I'm building this podcast as much for myself as for you as I navigate my own pivot journey. If you found value in today's conversation, please hit the subscribe button. By subscribing, you're joining a community of people who are choosing to prioritize fulfillment and passion over the safe bet. If you haven't already, make sure to follow Amber and Nick at nickandamber22 on Instagram for your daily dose of relatable couples comedy. And finally, if you know someone, a colleague, a friend, a partner who is currently buried under spreadsheets and needs to hear that there is another version of their life possible, please share this episode with them. I'm Chad Sturley, and I'll see you in the next episode for another story of someone who found the courage to make their pivot.